watched the mentality and the spirituality of humanity change in 65 years since I was a child. Being raised and born on a plantation in Alabama, uh, and knowing that, that this is all I ever knew. But I didn't whatever was taught to me by the white man. I prayed that to take me to another place so I would find some sense of clarity as a child, because I remember growing up in Alabama, going to town with my brothers and sisters, and they had to get out of town before sundown law. This is the first civil rights. And we'd go to the town, and all the white people started to chase us. And I remember asking my mother, I said, "Mom, why do these people dislike us so much?" And she says, "Only because you're different." And so in my mind, I said, we were taught that adults always kept the peace. Adults were the one with the come in, if they see a situation, they calm everything down. But when I saw adults chasing me with bats and dogs, it did something to my psychic. Like, what happens? But I'm saying all this for a reason. But what I'm saying is this. I have watched the attitudes of children change. I've watched the attitudes of man change. I've watched the world value system change on people's lives. I remember a time when kids couldn't go out and play, and the neighbor would watch you, and they would beat you if you did something, send you home to your mother. Nobody pulled a gun on you. They said thank you. Whatever he did, he deserved it. So there was a sense of still village, community, family. We take care of each other. Then all of a sudden we got into this part of history where we started teaching individualism. And individualism doesn't work because according to the history of man, we either came from villages or tribes. You go far enough back in our history, we all came from villages or tribes. So that meant that at some point in history, we were all responsible for the good of the whole. And so when we decided that philosophy no longer applied, that's when they started teaching us individuals. That means, see, when I was in school, let me tell you what we did. When I was in elementary school, when you came in every day, no matter what you look like, or no matter where you live, you know what the teachers made you do every day? Hold hands and pray. They made you held hands and pray before you start your classes every day. That's what we did. It wasn't about a religious thing. What it was doing was making sure that you understood that student next to you is your family, and you take care of them. They showed you in statistics, when they took prayer out of schools, violence went straight up the charts and off the charts. Because now these children believe in individualism. They started believing if I do something to you, it doesn't affect me. But before, they believed that we were one family. So if I prayed with you and I hurt you, or did something to you, even if the teacher didn't catch me, God sees me, he's going to punish me. So I must be kind to you. I must be good to you. I must be generous to you. And the powers that be, remember, the government is influenced by the Dark Lord. Yeah. Rich people always cater to the Dark Lord, because the Dark Lord said from the beginning, he said, I would give my children physical gifts. God said I would give my children spiritual gifts. So the people worship the Dark Lord because they want all his power and wealth and position, and so they knew that it was something they had to do in order to get this physical wealth. Blood has always been the sacrificial thing that was necessary to bond yourself with the Dark Lord. Mm-hmm. So you had to kill people to do that. A lot of slaves that were killed was sacrificial. A lot of people that were killed in slavery and during those times were sacrificial. They were sacrifices.
I saw this really messed up.
In the 1920s, there's a wave of, I think it came from Africa, a wave of like dark occultism or like magic.
Well, all the dark occultism is those. It's.
I guess it's more the rituals.
They call it dark occult because people will worship the Dark Lord, which had no morals.
Okay.
The Dark Lord has no morals. It has no value system. So that means if you worship the Dark Lord, you must be willing to do anything necessary. If you worship the God of light, then you must value life. You must value a system. You must value evolution and for the betterment. But if you worship the Dark Lord, that means that you must do things that are it's contrary to all things that are good.
Yeah.
And that affects you karmically.
It does. Yes.
I saw this really. I seen some. Of course, we all seen stuff. But one picture really hit me. It was a lynching, and there was like a bunch of little kids, like, hey, like,
yes,
they're standing on the campfire.
Yes, they did that.
And so
they did that. They brought the whole family in.
So they desensitized a population.
Yeah, it's fucking
horrible. What they did was when they lynched black men, they would have barbecues. They would have parties. They would have families would come out. And what made me so angry with white people was that not one stood up and said, this is wrong.
Yeah.
They all went along with the scenario. Not one, I'm saying, so are you saying to me among all these white people, there's no good white people here, to say that lynching a black man or a black child. So what they did with the little girls, back in the day, right, when we lived in Alabama, the store was 5 miles away from the house. You had to walk. A lot of times people sent their little daughters. The white man come along on the trucks and rape the little girls, and they would hang them to keep them from telling. So we could never send our little girls out to do anything because they were being hunted by these white males.
Predators.
They were predators, but they were hunting the little black girls.
Yeah. No
one's ever prosecuted. No one went to jail. No one ever did. All we knew that we had to protect our women. And if you don't know your history, you saw the deacon in a church. The deacon actually came from a deacon army. The deacon in the church was an army. That's what originally used to be. You see the deacons in the church today? Well, the deacons were called the deacon army. They was the ones that went out with guns and stuff to escort little children and women to the supermarkets or back home. That's what the deacons were formed for. They came out of the churches and armed themselves to protect the community. So they call themselves deacons. So that's where it all came from. But we don't have that anymore. Deacon now is just somebody in the church that follows the pastor. But their job was to protect the community of the church physically from violence.
So Eddie, now there are people concealed carrying in churches a lot now.
Yes, they are.
To protect.
So how do you...
Ever since this shit was popping off a few years ago, it's Charleston. Imagine this though, Eddie. Imagine me showing up at Shiloh Baptist Old Site. Hi. For church regularly and going to meetings and everything. Can you imagine how much I freak people out? But let me put a caveat on it. But I'm friends with the pastor who's from Alabama, deep south, 4th generation Baptist minister, and he's the one who invited me to come out there because I was in leadership class with him in the Chamber of Commerce in class of 2017. So it's kind of and I had all these
more around, but true.
Anybody didn't know who I was, they'd be like, "What's this guy?" Oh my.
Yeah, what is he doing here?
Because I was pretty much me and one other person there, like maybe 2 or 3, but. That are light skinned.
See, the thing about Christianity was that I knew I was done with Christianity. I'm gonna tell you, there was two. I used to be a minister. I used to have a church.
I was brainwashed by a cult, an extremist.
Really?
And that's why Christianity today.
And that's what, like, after that, that's when the pragmatic. It wasn't that I wasn't, like, I believed in God, but then I realized after coming out of that brainwashing, I was like, this isn't God either. This isn't of God. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, I don't know, it's like the manipulation, and then it's like, and then you see the men, like, you can see the difference between men and women.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, well, if your God's such a, I don't know, it's just.
But they said also, remember, if you were supposed to be a godly person, you're supposed to be subjective to the rules of that. Mm-hmm. That meant that men profit from people subjecting themselves to God's law. Men learned early in history how to pimp God. How to enslave with God, the
Jesus
power of God.
Jesus was angry. He flipped over the table.
Yeah, and see, so all the churches did, they realized that if you really want to control mass population, you got to get them believing in the same theology. See, there's only one reason that Christianity was allowed to thrive around the world, and I'll tell you why. Catholicism was the most powerful religion around. The Muslim was there before Christianity, but Catholicism started to grow so much that the churches, the ruling bodies of the time, they said, we must divide the people. allow Christianity to flourish. So we can't control all the people under one religion. There's too many of us. So they said we must allow Christianity to thrive so we can split the population up. But we will still control Christianity from the top. But they'll think that they're serving God, but actually it's us they're serving.
Yeah. Because like all of the idols and all the things, like, do you know what you're praying to? Do you know, for those that do use idols, it's like, do you know what you're like? Do you know where you're sending that energy?
But see, just remember this: all an idol is a physical object that you give life to. Now, listen to me carefully. I told you this earlier. Anything you believe in long enough takes on a living manifestation of its own. If you believe in anything, it comes to life. Nothing exists unless you believe in it first. All things are finite.